Chosen one, this story begins with something simple but unsettling. In the best way, the very thing you have been calling ordinary, God has been calling evidence. For a long time, you have quietly doubted yourself, not in dramatic ways, but in small internal conversations. You have minimized what comes naturally to you. You have overlooked the grace that flows through you without strain because you assumed that if it feels effortless, it cannot be significant. If it does not exhaust you, it must not be special. So you dismissed it. You labeled it normal. You moved on. But heaven never labeled it ordinary. You look at your life and think you are just surviving. You are managing responsibilities. You are staying steady. You're getting through hard seasons without collapsing. From your perspective, nothing about that feels extraordinary. It feels necessary. It feels expected. It feels like you are simply doing what you have to do. Yet while you were calling it survival, heaven was calling it formation. You see what is unfinished. You notice the goals not yet reached, the recognition not yet visible, the doors not yet opened. You measure yourself by what has not happened, but God is not measuring you by what is incomplete. He is looking at what has already been built inside you, your restraint, your endurance, your discernment, your quiet loyalty when no one was watching. Here is the gentle but powerful truth. God is not preparing you to become proof. You already are proof. The strength you barely acknowledge, the wisdom you assume is common, the stability you treat as basic. These are not accidents. They are evidence. Evidence that something has already been formed in you through seasons you thought were just about getting through. And now what heaven has been validating in the unseen is about to become visible. Chosen one, there is a subtle deception that has followed you for years, and it has not screamed in your ear. It has whispered. It has whispered every time you looked at someone else's life and quietly decided they were more gifted, more equipped, more anointed, more necessary than you. You have compared your interior world to their exterior display, your steady rhythm to their dramatic breakthroughs, your quiet endurance to their visible acceleration. And somewhere in that silent comparison, you concluded that they must have received something extraordinary while you were handed something average. Yet what you have dismissed as average is the very gift others have been crying out for in secret. You look at what feels natural to you and assume it cannot be special because it does not exhaust you. You move in certain strengths without strain and therefore label them as common. But chosen one, what feels effortless to you feels impossible to someone else. The way you sense spiritual shifts before they manifest, the way you hold your peace under pressure, the way you remain loyal when betrayal would have been justified, the way you recover from disappointment without becoming bitter. These are not random survival skills. They are not personality quirks. They are divine deposits. And because they do not require applause to function, you have mistaken them for insignificance. You have confused familiarity with lack of value. You wake up with these capacities every day, so you assume everyone else must too. You think your resilience is normal because you have always had to be resilient. You think your discernment is basic because you have always perceived beyond the surface. You think your empathy is ordinary because feeling deeply has been your lifelong baseline. But chosen one, you are not aware of how many people collapse under pressures you navigate with grace. You are not aware of how many people pray for clarity while you carry it instinctively. You are not aware of how many people beg for courage while you move forward despite trembling. Because your gift fits you, like skin, you have stopped noticing it. You compare yourself to others, assuming they carry something you lack, yet you fail to recognize that many of them look at you and assume the same. The chosen one often underestimates what heaven overestimated. You assume that because something flows through you without drama, it must not be powerful. But power does not always announce itself with noise. Sometimes it stabilizes rooms quietly. Sometimes it redirects atmospheres without spectacle. Sometimes it carries burdens in silence so others can breathe. You have been doing this for years without calling it a gift. You have been holding people together without recognizing that you were equipped to do so. You have been absorbing lessons from hardship and transforming them into wisdom for others, yet you treat that wisdom as common sense rather than consecrated experience. Chosen one, your normal is not normal. It is tailored. It is assigned. It is calibrated to the weight of your calling. God did not give you a gift that feels foreign to you. He gave you a gift that feels native because you were meant to carry it naturally. What you see as basic is actually evidence that you were designed for a specific lane. You were not meant to strain to be someone else. You were not meant to envy another mantle. You were meant to steward what rests on your shoulders without apology. And yet comparison has tried to convince you that louder is better, that more visible is more valuable, that what draws attention must be what heaven endorses. But heaven is not impressed by noise. Heaven is aligned with purpose. The chosen one is rarely the one shouting about their strength. The chosen one is often the one who quietly endures, quietly discerns, quietly obeys, quietly rebuilds. You have minimized what you carry because it has always been there. You have called it coincidence, personality, luck, even trauma, response, anything but divine placement. Yet, what if the reason it feels so natural is because it was woven into you before you understood language? What if the reason you operate in it without strain is because you were formed to handle it? You have confused ease with insignificance, when in reality, ease can be evidence of alignment. Chosen one, you were not given that capacity by accident. You were entrusted with it because you could hold it without being crushed. Others might buckle under the same responsibility. Others might misuse the same influence. Others might distort the same sensitivity into chaos. But you are wired to carry it with balance. That is why it does not feel heavy in your hands. That is why it does not feel dramatic when you operate in it. It feels like breathing. And because it feels like breathing, you have stopped marveling at it. You look at someone else's platform and assume that is where significance lives, while ignoring the invisible impact of your presence. You look at someone else's charisma and assume that is what anointing looks like, while overlooking the quiet authority that surrounds you when you speak. The chosen one's gift often does not beg for attention. It commands alignment. When you enter certain spaces, things shift. When you withdraw your energy, atmospheres reveal their instability. When you speak, clarity emerges. When you stay silent, confusion lingers. Yet you tell yourself that you are just being yourself. Yes, you are being yourself, but yourself was designed intentionally. You were shaped with spiritual precision. You were given certain instincts because your journey would require them. You were given certain sensitivities because your assignment would demand them. You were given certain strengths because your path would test them. God did not hand you something flashy that would tempt your ego. He handed you something fitting that would sustain your obedience. Chosen one, the gift you dismissed is not small, it is strategic. It may not glitter in public, but it anchors in private. It may not attract crowds, but it transforms individuals. It may not trend on platforms, but it shifts destinies quietly. You were meant to carry it naturally because struggling to carry it would have distracted you from your mission. What you call ordinary is evidence of divine confidence in you. Heaven trusted you with something that does not require constant validation because it was never meant to perform for applause. It was meant to function in purpose. You are not lacking. You are not behind. You are not under-equipped. You are carrying what you were always meant to carry. And the moment you stop comparing and start honoring what has always been in your hands is the moment you will realize that the gift you dismissed was never insignificant. It was sacred. Chosen one. The more honestly you examine your life, the harder it becomes to believe that you are a collection of accidents. The way you think, the way you respond under pressure, the way you interpret pain, the way you carry responsibility, none of it is random. You may have once attributed your personality to environment, your resilience to necessity, your perspective to survival, and your wisdom to experience alone, but heaven does not design through coincidence. God never plants randomness. Your temperament is not arbitrary. The fact that you tend to observe before speaking, that you analyze before reacting, that you sense shifts before they become visible, is not a personality quirk detached from purpose. It is wiring aligned with assignment. The resilience you developed did not emerge merely because life was hard. It emerged because you were being strengthened to carry weight others would drop. The perspective you gained from navigating disappointment was not an unfortunate byproduct of struggle. It was a lens being refined for clarity. Patterns revealed design. When you step back and look at your life not as isolated events, but as a sequence, you begin to notice consistency. You have repeatedly been placed in environments where steadiness mattered. You have often found yourself mediating tension without intending to. You have been entrusted with responsibility earlier than expected. You have navigated pain in ways that produced insight rather than bitterness. These are not disconnected stories, they are threads woven intentionally. Coincidence does not produce coherence. The way you navigate conflict reveals preparation. While others escalate quickly, you instinctively seek understanding. While others react emotionally, you pause long enough to consider consequence. This restraint did not form overnight. It was cultivated through moments where reacting would have been easier, yet responding proved wiser. That pattern suggests shaping, not randomness. The way you handle pain reveals sculpting. You have faced situations that could have hardened you permanently. Yet instead of becoming cynical, you became discerning. Instead of withdrawing from responsibility, you carried it more carefully. Instead of allowing disappointment to distort your vision, you allowed it to deepen your empathy. These outcomes are not automatic. They reflect intention woven through experience. Responsibility has followed you consistently. Even when you did not seek leadership, people deferred to your perspective. Even when you felt unqualified situations required your steadiness. Even when you wanted to remain in the background, circumstances positioned you where your clarity mattered. If randomness governed your life, patterns would not align so consistently with capacity. Chosen one, your struggles were not interruptions to your calling. They were instruments shaping it. You once believed that hardship was hiding you, delaying you, or disqualifying you. You interpreted the difficult seasons as evidence that you were off track. Yet what if those very seasons were chisels? What if the pressure was carving visibility rather than concealing it? Sculptors remove excess to reveal form. The removal feels like loss from the stone's perspective, but from the artist's view, it is revelation. Your life contains that kind of precision. The betrayal that sharpened your discernment, the delay that deepened your patience, the responsibility that strengthened your discipline, the silence that refined your hearing. Each struggle removed something unnecessary and strengthened something essential. You are not being hidden, you are being formed. Visibility requires structure. If you had stepped into greater exposure without inner stability, the weight would have fractured you. Instead, God allowed formation to precede manifestation. The wisdom you now carry did not emerge from comfort. It was born from tension. The emotional intelligence you exercise was not inherited effortlessly. It was refined through experience. The steadiness you demonstrate was forged in seasons when collapse seemed possible. Nothing about that is random. Even the aspects of yourself you once questioned now reveal design. Your sensitivity was not weakness. It was awareness developing early. Your cautious nature was not fear, it was discernment forming gradually. Your tendency to reflect deeply was not overthinking, it was perception strengthening quietly. Design often feels confusing while it is forming. Only in hindsight does pattern become visible. Only when you step back do you recognize that the same qualities that sustained you in struggle are now positioning you in clarity. What once felt like coping mechanisms now appear as capacities. What once felt like survival skills now resemble leadership traits. You are not surviving accidentally. You are being shaped intentionally. God does not scatter seeds randomly. He plants with purpose. When he embedded resilience within you, it was because endurance would be necessary. When he allowed perspective to form through pain, it was because others would eventually need guidance from someone who understands. When he strengthened your ability to navigate responsibility early, it was because stewardship would increase. Even your emotional landscape reflects intention. The empathy that causes you to feel deeply is not misplaced sensitivity. It is preparation to understand others without judgment. The internal tension you experience before major decisions is not anxiety alone. It is discernment, evaluating alignment. The frustration you feel when environments lack integrity is not impatience. It is awareness of misalignment. These traits align too consistently with purpose to be accidental. Chosen one begin to see your life through the lens of intentional design. The repeated scenarios were not punishments. They were rehearsals. The recurring themes were not stagnation. They were reinforcement. The challenges did not exist to derail you. They existed to develop you. The more you observe, the clearer it becomes. God never plants randomness. Even your timing reflects strategy. There were doors that did not open when you expected them to, not because you were overlooked, but because structure was still forming. There were relationships that dissolved not because you were rejected, but because alignment was shifting. There were opportunities that seemed to pass you by, not because you were unworthy, but because visibility without preparation would have been premature. Preparation is not glamorous. It often feels invisible. It often feels repetitive. It often feels like you are circling the same lessons. But repetition in development is not redundancy. It is reinforcement. When steel is forged, it is heated repeatedly until strength is undeniable. Your repetition was reinforcement. You are beginning to see that even your struggles were sculpting visibility. The very traits you once viewed as burdens now reveal function. The depth that isolated you at times now attracts those seeking substance. The steadiness that felt unnoticed now becomes the anchor others rely on. The wisdom that formed quietly now positions you to speak with authority. Nothing was wasted. Nothing was random. Nothing was accidental. Chosen one, as you accept this truth, your narrative shifts. You no longer see yourself as someone who stumbled into capacity. You recognize yourself as someone who was shaped into it. You stop questioning whether you were overlooked and begin understanding that you were positioned carefully. God does not plant seeds without intention, and he does not design souls without purpose. Your personality, your resilience, your perspective, your wisdom, they are not fragments of coincidence. They are components of calling. They align too precisely with your path to be accidental. They have carried you through seasons and are now preparing to carry you into visibility. And as you begin to see design where you once saw randomness, you realize something profound. You were never hidden. You were being sculpted for the moment when formation would meet manifestation. Chosen one, if what you carry is real, if your wiring is intentional, if your growth has been documented in the unseen, then the question naturally rises in your mind, why haven't you seen dramatic results yet? If there is something distinctive about you, why does your life not look spectacular? If heaven calls you evidence, why does the world not reflect it visibly? This question does not come from arrogance, it comes from tension. You have been trained subtly and consistently to equate value with spectacle. The world celebrates what is loud, what trends, what multiplies quickly. It rewards visibility before stability and attention before integrity. From an early age, you absorb the idea that significance must look impressive. If something is meaningful, it must be dramatic. If something is powerful, it must be public. So when your life feels steady rather than sensational, you wonder if you overestimated your calling. You see others ascend quickly, platforms expanding recognition, increasing influence visible. Meanwhile, you remain faithful in quieter spaces. You carry responsibility without applause. You demonstrate maturity without announcement. From the outside, it may not look extraordinary. From the inside, you know it is real. Yet the lack of spectacle creates doubt. But God rarely displays what he has not first developed in silence. Proof in the kingdom is formed quietly before it is revealed publicly. Consider how seeds function. Beneath the surface, growth begins long before anything visible appears. Roots extend downward before shoots rise upward. The unseen work determines the visible outcome. If the root system is shallow, the visible growth collapses under pressure. If the roots are deep, the visible structure can withstand exposure. You have been in root season. And root seasons are not glamorous. They feel repetitive. They feel hidden. They feel like preparation without presentation. But hidden development is not delay. It is reinforcement. The internal shift must occur before the external manifestation can sustain itself. You question the lack of dramatic results because the world conditioned you to expect immediate evidence. Yet God operates differently. He strengthens the vessel before expanding the platform. He refines character before increasing visibility. He establishes identity before amplifying influence. The shift happens internally first. You have already experienced it. The way you respond under pressure is different now. The way you handle conflict reflects maturity. The way you process disappointment demonstrates resilience. These internal shifts are not small. They are foundational. But because they are internal, they do not trend. The world cannot measure internal growth. It measures metrics. Heaven measures maturity. You may not see explosive results yet because explosive results require containment. Containment requires structure. Structure requires depth. Depth takes time. And time feels like delay when you are eager to see confirmation. Chosen one. Imagine if your visibility had increased before your stability did. The pressure of expectation could have overwhelmed you. The weight of influence could have distorted you. The noise of recognition could have distracted you. What feels like slowness may actually be mercy. God develops proof quietly before displaying it publicly because quiet development creates sustainability. You are not being overlooked. You are being established. There is a difference between rapid rise and rooted growth. Rapid rise impresses temporarily. Rooted growth endures. The world applauds rapid ascension, but heaven prioritizes longevity. Longevity requires internal fortification. Fortification rarely feels dramatic. The shift is already happening. It just has not reached the stage of manifestation you expect. You are speaking with more authority now because you have lived what you speak. You are carrying more weight in conversations because your perspective is refined. You are trusted more deeply by those who interact with you because your consistency has been observed. These are results even if they are not yet public. Sometimes the first evidence of growth is not applause, but increased responsibility. Sometimes the first sign of elevation is not visibility, but stewardship. Sometimes the first manifestation is not spectacle, but clarity. You have clarity now that you did not possess before. You discern faster. You recover quicker. You navigate tension more skillfully. These are internal results. They are foundational, and they are necessary before external increase can remain healthy. The frustration you feel is understandable because you live in a culture that equates speed with significance. But spiritual development does not operate on cultural timelines. It operates on readiness. Readiness is invisible until tested. You have already been tested. The pressure you passed was not random. It confirmed readiness. And readiness is what precedes revelation. Revelation does not always arrive dramatically. It unfolds progressively. Chosen one, consider this possibility. The reason you have not seen dramatic results yet is not because you lack something, but because what you carry is being calibrated carefully. Calibration requires patience. Precision requires timing. Timing requires trust. The external will eventually reflect the internal. But if the internal is still stabilizing, the external must wait. This waiting is not emptiness, it is alignment. Each day you remain faithful. In what feels small, you strengthen structure. Each time you choose obedience in quiet spaces, you reinforce foundation. Each moment you guard your peace and focus, you deepen roots. The world sees surface, heaven sees substance. Substance precedes surface. You have been building substance, and substance does not always look impressive while it forms. The shift within you is undeniable. You are calmer. You are clearer. You are less reactive. You are more intentional. These are not minor adjustments. They are transformations. Transformation internally must precede transformation externally. When the external shift comes, it will not feel chaotic. It will feel aligned. It will not overwhelm you because you will be structurally prepared. It will not distort you because your identity will already be anchored. You are not late. You are layering. You are not stagnant. You are stabilizing. Chosen one. The dramatic results you anticipate are not withheld as punishment. They are paced as protection. The masterpiece heaven sees is already formed internally. Public visibility is simply the unveiling of what has already been validated in private. Trust the sequence. Internal first, external second. Substance before spectacle. Formation before manifestation. What you carry is real. What you have developed is strong. And when the external aligns with the internal, it will not be explosive chaos. It will be sustainable impact. Until then, do not mistake quiet growth for absence of progress. The roots are deepening. And when roots are deep enough, visibility becomes inevitable. Chosen one. Imagine walking through a dim corridor with a flashlight in your hand, yet doubting whether you are meant to move forward because the path ahead looks unclear. You hesitate, you question your direction, you wait for a brighter sign, all while the very light designed to guide you rests inactive in your grip. The problem is not the absence of illumination. The problem is that you forgot to turn it on. This is the story of your life more than you realize. You have been equipped all along. The wisdom you seek externally already resides within you. The discernment you admire in others has been forming quietly in your own mind. The resilience you believe you still need to develop has already carried you through seasons that would have broken a less prepared soul. Yet because you underestimated what was placed in you, you moved cautiously, almost apologetically, as if you were waiting for heaven to hand you something new. But heaven has been waiting for you to recognize what you already carry. The metaphor deepens when you realize that holding a flashlight without activating it creates a false narrative. You begin to believe the darkness is heavier than it is. You convince yourself the terrain is more dangerous than it actually appears. You assume you are under-equipped because the path feels uncertain. In reality, the only missing element is recognition. The light exists. The capacity exists. The preparation exists. Activation requires acknowledgement. Self-perception blocked what divine placement already secured. You have looked at your strengths through a lens of doubt. When clarity surfaced in your thoughts, you dismissed it as overthinking. When conviction rose in your spirit, you labeled it as emotion. When insight aligned unexpectedly, you called it coincidence. Each time you reduced what flowed naturally, you dimmed the flashlight you were meant to use. Recognition changes everything. When you recognize that the light is already in your hand, you stop waiting for dramatic confirmation. You begin moving differently. You step forward, not because the entire corridor is illuminated, but because the next few steps are clear. The journey was never meant to be flooded with overwhelming brightness. It was designed to unfold one step at a time. Chosen one, consider how often you ask God for direction while ignoring the clarity already present. You prayed for boldness while quietly exercising courage. You asked for wisdom while already giving sound counsel. You requested strength while enduring pressure without collapse. The pattern reveals something significant. You are not lacking ability. You are lacking acknowledgement. Acknowledgement activates stewardship. The flashlight does not serve its purpose until you intentionally use it. Similarly, the gift within you does not expand until you own it. Ownership is not arrogance. It is responsibility. It is the moment you say, "This capacity was given intentionally, and I will no longer pretend it is accidental." God is not withholding new equipment. He is inviting you to operate what you already possess. The tension you felt about the future often stemmed from misreading your present. You believed that because the road ahead seemed unclear, you must be unprepared. But preparation is rarely about seeing the entire path. It is about being equipped for the next movement. You already are. The flashlight metaphor also reveals something deeper. Light feels ordinary when it is familiar. You grow accustomed to your own illumination. You forget that others struggle to see what you see easily. What is obvious to you is confusing to someone else. What is instinctive to you requires training for others. That contrast reveals capacity, yet you minimized it because it did not feel dramatic. Doubt convinced you that if your gift were real, it would announce itself loudly. It would feel explosive. It would arrive with visible confirmation. But most divine equipment is subtle. It integrates into your thinking patterns, your emotional responses, your reflexes. It feels like you because it was embedded intentionally. Chosen one. The shift happening now is not about receiving something new. It is about activating something existing. The flashlight is already in your hand. The path ahead may not be fully visible, but the next step is illuminated. Waiting for brighter light delays movement unnecessarily. Self-perception shaped your hesitation. You compared your light to other spotlights and concluded yours was insufficient. But comparison is distortion. Some are assigned to flood arenas. Others are assigned to guide corridors. Both are light. Both are necessary. The measure is not brightness alone. It is alignment with purpose. When you stop minimizing your capacity, clarity increases. You begin to trust your instincts instead of second-guessing them. You move when peace aligns rather than waiting for applause. You speak when conviction forms instead of silencing yourself out of doubt. These are not reckless actions. They are activated obedience. The only missing element was recognition. You have been equipped for this stage longer than you realized. The internal growth, the refined trust, the stabilized character, all of it form the circuitry for illumination. Now, activation depends on ownership. Ownership does not inflate ego. It humbles it. You recognize that what you carry is not self-generated. It was entrusted. Entrusted gifts require stewardship. Stewardship requires confidence in placement. Confidence does not mean arrogance, it means agreement with design. God is not waiting to hand you a brighter light. He is waiting for you to turn on the one you have. Chosen one. Imagine how differently you would walk if you trusted the illumination already present. The corridor would no longer intimidate you. The shadows would not dictate your pace. You would not require external reassurance for every movement. You would simply step forward in alignment. Activation changes atmosphere. When light turns on, darkness does not negotiate, it retreats. In the same way, when you own your capacity, hesitation loses authority. Confusion decreases, alignment sharpens, movement becomes smoother. This is not about dramatic transformation overnight. It is about intentional acknowledgement daily. Each time you choose to trust your discernment, the light strengthens. Each time you respond to conviction promptly, the beam extends. Each time you stop apologizing for your capacity, clarity expands. You were never under-equipped. You were under-recognized by yourself. Now recognition is rising. The story moves from doubt to activation, from minimizing to stewarding, from waiting to moving. The flashlight has always been there. The path has always been accessible step by step. The only barrier was the belief that you needed something more. Chosen one, you do not need more light. You need to use the light already placed in you. Chosen one, there is a dimension of your life you rarely consider because it operates quietly, and without announcement you are being watched. Not in a way that should make you anxious, and not in a way that demands performance, but in a way that reveals impact. There are people observing you who will never tell you they are observing. They are not applauding you publicly. They are not announcing that your choices matter, yet they are taking notes in silence. You assume you are just living your life, managing your responsibilities, navigating your seasons. You believe your faith is personal, your endurance private, your discipline routine. What you do not see is how your composure in chaos recalibrates someone else's expectations. When tension rises and you remain steady, someone quietly reconsiders what stability looks like. When uncertainty stretches long and you do not abandon your faith, someone silently questions whether quitting is their only option. Your persistence is not invisible, it is instructive. There are individuals around you who are in seasons you have already survived. They may not share their struggles openly. They may not admit their doubts, but they are watching how you handle yours. They are noticing how you carry pressure without collapsing. They are observing how you maintain integrity when cutting corners would be easier. They are studying how you remain grounded when circumstances shift unpredictably. You are someone's confirmation that endurance and grace are possible. Confirmation does not always arrive through words. Sometimes it arrives through example. Sometimes it arrives through proximity. Sometimes it arrives through witnessing consistency over time. The world often teaches that strength must be loud to be effective, yet quiet strength reshapes environments more deeply than dramatic declarations. Your composure in chaos sends a message that steadiness can exist without control. Your faith in silence sends a message that trust does not require constant validation. Your persistence in hardship sends a message that difficulty does not automatically equal defeat. These messages are absorbed even when unspoken. Chosen one, consider how often you have admired someone else's resilience without telling them. You may have drawn strength from watching someone endure with dignity. You may have gained courage from witnessing someone remain faithful under strain. In the same way, your life is functioning as a mirror for others. They see possibilities in you that they struggle to see in themselves. You are living evidence, evidence that grace can sustain, evidence that maturity can grow quietly, evidence that self-control can override impulse, evidence that disappointment does not have to breed cynicism. You may feel ordinary in your consistency because you experience your internal struggles firsthand, but observers see the external steadiness more clearly than you do. Consistency is persuasive. Flashy moments inspire briefly. Steady character influences deeply. Your ordinary routines, showing up responding with patience, maintaining discipline, choosing integrity, are not insignificant repetitions. They are testimony in motion. They are proving that transformation is sustainable. God often uses ordinary consistency as extraordinary testimony. He does not always announce who carries influence. He embeds it in daily life. You may not hold a microphone or a platform, but your life speaks. The way you handle conflict without escalating, the way you accept correction without defensiveness, the way you continue praying without visible answers. These are sermons delivered without a stage. There are younger believers watching you navigate doubt without abandoning faith. There are colleagues observing how you respond to unfairness without compromising values. There are friends noticing how you process pain without projecting bitterness. They may never articulate what they are learning from you, but they are learning. Your steadiness expands permission. When you endure without dramatizing, you give others permission to endure without shame. When you admit struggle yet remain anchored, you give others permission to be honest without despair. When you continue serving despite fatigue, you give others permission to stay committed even when energy fluctuates. Chosen one, you underestimate how powerful visible endurance is in a culture addicted to quick exits. Quitting has become normalized. Complaining has become habitual. Cynicism has become fashionable. In that environment, your grace stands out more than you realize. You are confirmation that another way exists. The unseen observers in your life may be questioning whether faith is sustainable. They may wonder whether obedience is worth the cost. They may struggle to reconcile pain with purpose. Watching you navigate those same tensions without abandoning alignment answers questions they have not voiced. You do not need to perform for them. You simply need to remain authentic. Authenticity carries more weight than perfection. When you admit weakness yet continue moving forward, you demonstrate resilience without pretense. When you acknowledge doubt yet choose trust, you model faith without denial. That balance is rare. That balance is instructive. God uses that. He uses your consistency as living curriculum. He uses your perseverance as visible theology. He uses your calm in crisis as demonstration that spiritual maturity is attainable. You may not feel extraordinary while living it, but those observing see the difference. There is someone who almost gave up, but hesitated because they remembered how you endured. There is someone who reconsidered compromising because they remembered your integrity. There is someone who held on to hope because they watched you survive your own dark season. You are someone's confirmation, not because you are flawless, not because you never struggle, but because you remain. You remain faithful. You remain steady. You remain aligned, and remaining in a world of retreat is powerful. Chosen one, allow this truth to humble you and strengthen you simultaneously. Humble you because influence does not belong to you. It flows through you. Strengthen you because your daily decisions matter more than you see. You may never know the full extent of who is watching. You may never receive acknowledgement from those learning quietly through your life. But heaven sees the ripple. Heaven knows the impact. Heaven understands that your ordinary consistency is building extraordinary testimony in hearts you cannot trace. Continue walking. Continue choosing grace. Continue enduring. Because while you think you are simply living your life, someone else is finding confirmation that they can live theirs faithfully too. Chosen one, there is a truth about elevation that few people speak about honestly. When you rise, you are seen. Not just your gift, not just your strength, you. Elevation is not merely expansion, it is exposure. And exposure is not about fame, applause, or public recognition. It is about responsibility. Being put on display in God's design does not mean being celebrated for your talent. It means being entrusted with influence. Influence magnifies everything. It magnifies your words, your reactions, your decisions, your blind spots, and your discipline. What was once contained in small rooms becomes visible in larger spaces. What was once witnessed by a few becomes observed by many. Elevation requires sustainability. Your gift can attract attention quickly. Your clarity can draw people in. Your steadiness can create trust. But what sustains what your gift attracts is character. Without character, visibility becomes pressure. Without humility, influence becomes distortion. Without discipline, expansion becomes erosion. This is why obscurity was protection. In hidden seasons, your humility formed quietly. You learn to serve without applause. You learn to obey without recognition. You learn to refine your motives without an audience. That season was not delay, it was shielding. Obscurity allowed your internal structure to strengthen before external visibility tested it. When elevation comes, it does not create weaknesses. It reveals them. If pride exists, exposure amplifies it. If insecurity lingers, visibility intensifies it. If discipline is inconsistent, influence destabilizes it. Elevation does not manufacture flaws, it uncovers them. That is why God does not rush exposure. He displays what he can trust. Trust is built in the hidden. You proved steadiness when no one applauded. You demonstrated integrity when no one monitored you. You chose obedience when no one affirmed you. Those private decisions created public readiness. The same humility that protected you in obscurity will protect you in visibility. Humility is not self-deprecation. It is self-awareness, anchored in gratitude. It understands that capacity was entrusted, not earned. It remembers that influence is stewardship, not ownership. It resists the temptation to equate attention with identity. Chosen one elevation will test your internal alignment in new ways. When people begin to seek your opinion more frequently, will you remain grounded? When your words carry more weight, will you measure them carefully? When affirmation increases, will you guard your motives diligently? These are not threats, they are responsibilities. Visibility increases impact. Impact increases accountability. Accountability requires maturity. The reason you have been refined internally is because exposure multiplies effect. If your composure in small rooms influenced a few, your composure in larger spaces will influence many. If your consistency shaped a handful, your consistency at scale will shape more. Elevation is multiplication, not decoration, but multiplication demands containment. Containment is the ability to carry weight without losing balance. It is the discipline to maintain rhythm when attention fluctuates. It is the stability to remain anchored when opinions divide. It is the wisdom to listen more as influence grows, not less. The world often portrays elevation as reward. In God's design, elevation is responsibility. It is not about spotlight, it is about stewardship. When you are displayed, it is not to inflate you, but to position you. Positioning allows others to see what alignment looks like in real time. Exposure also requires protection. The same humility that shielded you in hidden seasons must remain active. When visibility increases, temptation shifts. The temptation is no longer to quit quietly. It becomes the temptation to compromise subtly. It becomes the temptation to impress rather than obey. It becomes the temptation to protect image rather than cultivate integrity. Humility disarms those temptations. It keeps you teachable. It keeps you correctable. It keeps you grounded. It reminds you that the gift you carry is not self-generated. It ensures that gratitude remains stronger than ego. Chosen one, remember this. God displays what he can trust. Trust is not about perfection. It is about consistency. It is about knowing that when pressure intensifies, your alignment remains intact. It is about confidence that influence will not distort identity. It is about assurance that attention will not replace devotion. You have been tested in obscurity. You have learned to remain steady without affirmation. That training now becomes protection, invisibility. When praise arrives, you will not depend on it because you survived without it. When criticism surfaces, you will not collapse because your identity was formed privately. When expectations increase, you will not panic because responsibility is not new to you. Elevation does not create a new person, it reveals who you already are. If humility has anchored you, it will continue to guard you. If discipline has shaped you, it will continue to sustain you. If obedience has defined you, it will continue to guide you. The difference is that now more eyes will observe it. This is not meant to intimidate you. It is meant to prepare you. Visibility is coming in ways that align with your calling, not in chaotic ways that destabilize it. You will not be thrown into exposure without covering. God does not display what he has not first fortified. What he reveals, he has already reinforced. Chosen one, do not fear elevation. Respect it. Embrace the responsibility it carries. Guard the humility that carried you through hidden seasons. Protect the habits that formed your character. Remain attentive to correction. Stay anchored in gratitude. Remember that influence is entrusted, not owned. You are not being elevated for spectacle. You are being positioned for stewardship. And because God displays what he can trust, the fact that visibility is increasing is evidence that trust has already been established. Chosen one, after all the refining, the preparation, the quiet strengthening, and the repeated confirmations, the greatest barrier standing in front of you was never a lack of ability. It was never a missing resource, never insufficient gifting, never divine hesitation. The barrier was internal. It was distorted self-perception. You were equipped, but you questioned it. You were prepared, but you minimized it. You were aligned, but you doubted it. Distortion is subtle. It does not shout lies. It whispers reductions. It convinces you that what is strong in you is average. It persuades you that what is intentional is accidental. It frames divine placement as coincidence. Over time, you begin to live beneath your design, not because you lack capacity, but because you do not fully agree with it. The true limitation was not ability. It was agreement. You have believed in God's power for others. You have trusted his promises in theory. You have affirmed that he designs with purpose. Yet when it came to yourself, you quietly hesitated. You agreed that God is intentional, but you doubted that his intentionality applied to you in a meaningful way. That hesitation created friction. Friction does not always look like failure. Sometimes it looks like underestimation. You moved carefully, cautiously, almost apologetically. You delayed stepping forward because you assumed you needed more validation. You waited for clearer affirmation before acting on instincts that were already accurate. You questioned your clarity even when it repeatedly proved trustworthy. The moment you stop discrediting yourself, alignment begins. Alignment is not about ego expanding. It is about distortion dissolving. When you finally acknowledge that what you carry is real, not imagined, not exaggerated, not self-generated, something shifts. Movement becomes smoother. Decisions become cleaner. Obedience becomes less complicated. Self-discrediting created hesitation. Recognition creates momentum. Chosen one, faith in God must include agreement with how he sees you. It is incomplete to trust his sovereignty while rejecting his design. If he calls you equipped, denying it is not humility. If he calls you place, questioning it endlessly is not modesty. True humility is not shrinking. It is accurately accepting what was entrusted without exaggeration and without reduction. You believe that minimizing yourself protected you from pride. But minimizing yourself also blocked alignment. There is a difference between humility and self-rejection. Humility acknowledges dependence on God while stewarding what He has given. Self-rejection dismisses what He has formed. One honors the giver, the other questions the gift. The internal shift that unlocks everything is agreement. Agreement that your discernment is intentional. Agreement that your resilience is designed. Agreement that your steadiness is placed. Agreement that your capacity is not accidental. This agreement does not inflate you, it steadies you. When you accept His perspective, your confidence becomes worship. Confidence rooted in self-exaltation becomes ego. Confidence rooted in divine design becomes gratitude. You are not declaring yourself powerful, independent of God. You are declaring that what He formed in you is sufficient for what He assigned. This is worship in motion. Worship is not only singing, it is alignment. It is living in agreement with truth. When you walk in the confidence that comes from recognizing God's design in you, you honor Him. You demonstrate that you trust His craftsmanship. For too long, you believed that doubting yourself was safer than believing in your placement. Doubt felt cautious. Doubt felt humble. Doubt felt less risky. But doubt also restrained movement. It caused you to hesitate where clarity already existed. It caused you to delay where readiness had already formed. The shift happens when you say internally, "If God designed this in me, I will not argue with it." That statement is not arrogance. It is surrender. Surrender to His perspective. You begin to see that the only thing missing was alignment between heaven's assessment and your own. Heaven already recognized your growth. Heaven already validated your maturity. Heaven already entrusted you with responsibility. The last alignment needed was within you. Once agreement forms internally, everything unlocks externally. Your posture changes. Your voice stabilizes. Your decisions sharpen. You move without over-explaining yourself. You act without constant second-guessing. You accept influence without panic. The external may not shift overnight, but your internal friction dissolves. Chosen one. Imagine how different your life feels when you stop arguing with your own design. When clarity arises, you honor it. When conviction surfaces, you follow it. When opportunity appears, you step into it without rehearsing inadequacy. This is not self-glorification, it is divine alignment. Faith in God is not merely believing He can do great things. It is believing He knew what He was doing when He made you. It is trusting that your wiring was not random. It is accepting that your formation was intentional. When you accept His perspective, confidence becomes gratitude in action. You no longer shrink in rooms where you are meant to speak. You no longer apologize for clarity that helps others. You no longer dilute your insight to avoid discomfort. Instead, you steward it responsibly. Ego demands recognition. Worship expresses gratitude. The difference lies in motive. Ego seeks elevation for identity. Worship receives elevation as stewardship. When your confidence is rooted in honoring the giver, it cannot corrupt you. It becomes alignment rather than inflation. The internal shift unlocks everything because it removes resistance. Resistance does not always come from external opposition. Sometimes it comes from internal disbelief. When disbelief dissolves, obedience accelerates. When agreement forms, timing aligns. When you stop discrediting yourself, you step into rhythm with what has already been prepared. Chosen one, the breakthrough you anticipated externally was waiting for an internal agreement. You were not lacking ability, you were lacking recognition. Now recognition is forming. Now agreement is strengthening. Now alignment is stabilizing. And as alignment stabilizes, movement becomes natural. You are not becoming someone new. You are accepting who you already were. That acceptance is not pride, it is worship. Chosen one, there is something you must understand clearly before you take your next step. God does not wait for you to feel ready before He calls you. He calls first. He equips quietly. And only then does He reveal. The sequence has never been feeling, then calling. It has always been calling, then forming, then unveiling. You were called long before you felt qualified. There were moments in your life when responsibility found you before confidence did. Opportunities appeared before certainty formed. Expectations increased while you were still internally negotiating your own capacity. At the time, it felt premature. You thought you were behind. You assumed others were more prepared. But heaven does not operate on your emotional timeline. Readiness is not a feeling. It is a decision to step. If readiness were emotional, no one would ever move. Every person you admire once stood in a place of internal hesitation. Moses doubted his voice. Esther feared her exposure. Jeremiah questioned his age. Peter questioned his stability. None of them felt ready when they were called. They felt aware of their limitations, yet they stepped. The difference between the called and the stagnant is not perfection. It is obedience. You have waited for a feeling to confirm what calling already established. You told yourself that once you felt completely confident, completely clear, completely steady, then you would move forward. But confidence grows through movement. Clarity sharpens through obedience. Steadiness strengthens under weight. The people you admire once stood exactly where you stand now, uncertain, aware of their weaknesses, yet unmistakably chosen. You see the finished version of their story. You see the influence, the clarity, the authority. What you do not see is the internal trembling they navigated at the beginning. You do not see the private wrestling before public stepping. You do not see the moments they questioned whether they were enough. Chosen one, they did not step because they felt ready. They stepped because they were called. And so are you. The equipping has already happened more than you realize. The wisdom you carry was formed in seasons of struggle. The resilience you depend on was strengthened in quiet battles. The discernment you trust was sharpened through repeated testing. You were not idle while waiting. You were being built. God equips the called before He reveals them. Revelation is not random exposure. It is the natural consequence of maturation. Fruit becomes visible when it is developed. Light becomes noticeable when darkness surrounds it. Influence becomes apparent when integrity sustains it. Visibility is not forced. It is earned through alignment. You now stand on the edge of that visibility. Not because you demanded it. Not because you pursued it recklessly. Not because you manipulated timing. You stand there because you matured into it. The internal shifts you resisted at first are now your stability. The discipline you cultivated quietly is now your strength. The humility you practiced in obscurity is now your protection. This edge feels unfamiliar. It feels like stepping into air before the ground appears solid. It feels like risk. It feels like exposure. But it is not premature. It is aligned. You are not at the edge because you forced a door open. You are there because the door opened naturally when formation met timing. You once believed visibility required striving. Now you realize it requires stewardship. Stewardship of character, stewardship of focus, stewardship of humility. The same traits that protected you in hidden seasons will sustain you in visible ones. Nothing about your development was wasted. Every quiet yes prepared you for this louder yes. Chosen one readiness is not the absence of fear. It is the presence of obedience despite it. You may still feel questions rising internally. You may still sense areas where you are growing. That does not disqualify you. Growth does not end at revelation. It continues within it. The difference now is that your growth will no longer be invisible. This is not about sudden fame. It is about rightful placement. Rightful placement occurs when calling, equipping, and timing converge. Calling initiated the journey. Equipping shaped you in hidden seasons. Timing now reveals what was already built. The sequence is intact. You are not late. You are aligned. Consider how many times you assumed you were behind, only to realize later that you were being prepared. That pattern was not accidental, it was instructional. It taught you that discomfort often precedes expansion. It showed you that doubt does not negate calling. It revealed that insecurity can coexist with obedience. The edge of visibility is not a cliff, it is a threshold. Crossing it requires trust, not perfection. You do not need to eliminate every internal question before stepping. You need to align with what you already know. You know you have grown. You know your responses have matured. You know your perception has sharpened. You know your discipline has strengthened. That is equipping. God does not reveal what he has not first reinforced. You are being revealed because reinforcement has occurred. The weight you once could not carry now feels manageable. The responsibility that once intimidated you now feels aligned. The influence that once felt distant now feels possible. You stand here not by accident. You stand here by maturation. Chosen one, let this truth anchor you. God equips the called, then reveals them. He does not reveal to equip. He equips to reveal. You have been equipped, quietly, thoroughly, intentionally. Now, revelation approaches. And when you step forward, it will not be because you finally felt ready. It will be because you finally decided to agree with the calling that has been shaping you all along. Chosen one, as this chapter closes, let the truth settle deeply. You are not behind. You are positioned. What felt like delay was alignment. What felt like being overlooked was construction happening out of sight. You were not standing still while others advanced. You were being placed carefully, layer by layer, so that when movement came, it would not destabilize you. Positioning is precise. It accounts for timing, structure, weight, and readiness. And you have been positioned with intention. You are not unnoticed. You are being prepared for display. Display does not mean spectacle for applause. It means revelation of what has already been formed. In hidden seasons, your character was strengthened. In silent seasons, your discernment sharpened. In difficult seasons, your resilience deepened. Nothing was wasted. Nothing was random. Preparation often feels like obscurity, but obscurity is often protection. God does not expose what he has not fortified. Understand this clearly. God is not showcasing perfection. He is showcasing transformation. Perfection intimidates. Transformation inspires. A flawless image creates distance. A transformed life creates hope. When the world sees you, it will not see someone who never struggled. It will see someone who struggled and remained aligned. It will not see someone who avoided pain. It will see someone who endured pain without surrendering purpose. It will not see someone who never doubted. It will see someone who doubted and still chose faith. That is living proof of grace that sustains, living proof of resilience that forms under pressure, living proof of divine design that unfolds even when misunderstood. Your life will testify not because it is polished, but because it is authentic. The scars will not disqualify you. They will authenticate you. The growth will not erase your past. It will reinterpret it. The world does not need another flawless image. It needs evidence that transformation is possible. And you are that evidence. The only thing left is agreement. Agreement with how heaven sees you. Agreement with the design embedded in you. Agreement that what you carry is intentional and sufficient for what you are called to steward. Stop shrinking what heaven intends to shine. Stop minimizing what God has matured. Stop reducing your capacity in the name of humility. You are not behind. You are not unnoticed. You are not unfinished. You are positioned, prepared, transformed, and ready to be revealed in the measure that aligns with your design. And when visibility increases, it will not highlight perfection. It will illuminate grace at work in real time.